Welcome to UBI Unplugged, breaking down the future of income. I'm excited to be diving into a topic that I think is absolutely crucial for the future of our cities and society as a whole. We're talking about universal basic income, how it intersects with urban agriculture, and what that means for community-based food systems. It's a mouthful, I know, but stick with us.
Yeah, it's a lot. UBI. Still not convinced, but hey, I'm always willing to listen. Urban agriculture, though, I'm picturing rooftop gardens and chickens in Brooklyn.
Well, it's more than just chickens, Otto. Think vertical farms, aquaponics, community gardens designed into new developments. And the question is, how does a guaranteed income, a UBI, impact those initiatives? Does it empower them, or does it create unintended consequences? That's what I'm interested in.
Exactly, and that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Look, we've seen so much frustration lately, even people who voted for Trump feeling betrayed by broken promises. I think a lot of that stems from economic insecurity. People are hurting and they're looking for solutions. UBI for me is a way to directly address that, to give people a baseline of economic stability.
But directly giving people money. It just sounds too simple. Where's the incentive to work? I mean, really work. Is it just going to inflate prices, making things even worse?
Those are valid concerns, Otto. We absolutely need to talk about inflation. And the incentive to work, that's a big one. Studies have shown that people don't just stop working. They might work fewer hours, take more fulfilling jobs, start their own businesses, but we need more data. Pilot programs are essential to understanding the actual impact.
And that's where urban agriculture comes in. Imagine someone in a low-income neighborhood receiving a UBI. Now, they have the financial security to invest in a community garden plot or to take a workshop on vertical farming. They can actually participate in creating a more resilient local food system. It's not just about handouts, it's about empowerment.
Okay, I see that. But what about scalability? Can we really feed entire cities with urban farms? Seems niche.
It's not about replacing traditional agriculture, Otto. It's about supplementing it, about creating more localized, resilient supply chains. Think about food deserts, areas where access to fresh, healthy food is limited. Urban agriculture can help fill that gap, and UBI can give residents the means to actually afford that food.
Exactly. And we're already seeing innovative models emerge. Vertical farms and repurposed warehouses, aquaponic systems, and shipping containers. These aren't just quirky hobbies. They're potential job creators and they're boosting food security.
Job creators. But wouldn't it just take away from the real farmers? The ones in the, you know, fields?
Not necessarily. Think about the skills gap in agriculture. There's a need for people who understand hydroponics, controlled environment agriculture, data analytics related to crop yields. These are 21st century skills, and urban agriculture can be a training ground for them. It could actually revitalize the entire agricultural sector.
And UBI can help bridge that skills gap. People who can't afford to take unpaid internships or career training programs could actually pursue those opportunities with the security of a guaranteed income. It levels the playing field.
Okay, so let's say, hypothetically, this all works. Where does the money for UBI come from? Taxes. We're already taxed to death.
That's the big question, isn't it? There are various proposals, a value-added tax, a carbon tax, even streamlining existing welfare programs. We need a serious data-driven analysis of the different funding models, and we need to be transparent about the trade-offs.
And let's not forget the potential cost savings. Think about reduced crime rates, improved public health, less strain on the social safety net. A lot of these things cost money, and UBI might actually be a more efficient way to address them in the long run. It's preventative care, economically speaking.
Preventative, I don't know. It feels like wishful thinking. What about the political hurdles? Congress can't even agree on what day it is.
That's a huge issue. Political will is essential. And we need to address the legitimate concerns of people who are skeptical, like you, Otto. We need to demonstrate the potential benefits with solid data and clear policy proposals.
And maybe we need to bypass Congress a little bit. I mean, look at how dysfunctional things are. Economic policy being undermined by political infighting. It's frustrating. Maybe UBI pilot programs at the state or local level can demonstrate the effectiveness and build momentum from the ground up.
So more government programs. That's just, ugh, more bureaucracy.
It doesn't have to be more bureaucracy. We can leverage existing infrastructure, like direct deposit systems. The key is to design the program efficiently and transparently with built-in accountability measures.
And technology can play a big role. Blockchain-based systems could ensure secure and transparent distribution of funds, reducing the risk of fraud and corruption. We need to be innovative in how we implement UBI.
Blockchain? Now we're just throwing buzzwords around. Seriously though, what about unintended consequences? What if people just use the money for drugs? Gambling?
Those are valid concerns, and they need to be addressed. But studies of existing cash transfer programs haven't shown widespread increases in substance abuse. In fact, some studies have shown the opposite, that people use the money to improve their lives, to invest in their families, to get out of debt.
Exactly. And we shouldn't assume the worst about people. Most people want to improve their lives, to contribute to their communities. UBI gives them the opportunity to do that.
Okay, so let's bring it back to urban agriculture. How would UBI specifically impact, say, a community garden in a low-income neighborhood?
Well, it could provide the residents with the financial means to purchase seeds, tools, and other supplies. It could also free up their time to participate in the garden, to learn new skills, and to build community.
And it could create a virtuous cycle. As the garden becomes more productive, it provides access to fresh, healthy food, which improves health outcomes and reduces healthcare costs. It's a win-win.
But what about the people who don't want to garden? What about the people who just want to sit around and watch TV?
They have that right. UBI is about providing a basic safety net, not forcing people to conform to a particular lifestyle. But I think you'd be surprised at how many people would actually be empowered to pursue their passions, to contribute to their communities, if they had the security of a guaranteed income.
Yeah, and look, even if some people choose to use the money in ways we don't approve of, that's their choice. We can't control everyone's behavior. But we can create a system that gives everyone the opportunity to thrive.
So it's like trusting people? That's a novel concept.
It is, and it's a necessary one, I think. We need to move away from a system that's based on distrust and scarcity, and towards one that's based on trust and abundance.
Exactly. And that's where urban agriculture fits in. It's about creating a more abundant and resilient food system, one that's accessible to everyone. It's about building community and empowering people to take control of their own lives.
Okay, so I'm starting to see the potential synergy here. UBI provides the means, urban agriculture provides the opportunity.
But it's not a magic bullet. We need to be realistic about the challenges. We need to address the potential for inflation, the incentives to work, the funding models, the political hurdles.
And we need to be willing to experiment, to learn from our mistakes, and to adapt as we go. UBI is not a one-size-fits-all solution. It needs to be tailored to the specific needs of each community.
So it's complicated.
Very. But I think it's a conversation worth having, because the current system isn't working for everyone, and we need to explore new ways to create a more just and equitable society.
Absolutely. And urban agriculture can be a key part of that solution. It's not just about growing food, it's about growing community, growing opportunity, and growing a more sustainable future.
Okay, you've given me something to think about. I'm still skeptical, but less skeptical than I was at the beginning.
That's all we can ask for. To keep the conversation going, to keep challenging our assumptions, and to keep exploring new possibilities.
And I think we need to look at some of the real world examples that are happening now. Let's talk about Philadelphia, for instance. You have a large Black community there that's facing significant economic struggles. Some of those voters even turned to Trump out of desperation, and now they regret it. Could UBI be a more direct and efficient way to tackle those underlying issues rather than relying on ad hoc economic interventions that may or may not work?
Philadelphia, that's a tough city, but is throwing money at the problem really going to fix it? What about the root causes of those economic struggles? The lack of good jobs, the failing schools, the systemic racism. UBI doesn't address those things directly, does it?
It doesn't directly address them, but it can create the space for those issues to be tackled more effectively. For example, if parents have a guaranteed income, they might have more time to be involved in their children's education, to advocate for better schools, or they might be able to afford to move to a neighborhood with better opportunities.
Exactly. It's about creating a foundation of economic security that allows people to address those other challenges. And in a place like Philadelphia, with its rich history of urban gardening and community-based food initiatives, UBI could really amplify those efforts.
Okay, I'm picturing it, small community gardens popping up, people selling their produce at local markets. But is that really going to make a dent in the systemic problems facing the Black community in Philadelphia? It seems small scale.
It's not just about the gardens themselves. It's about the skills and knowledge that people gain through participating in those initiatives. It's about creating a sense of community and empowerment. And it's about building a more resilient local food system that can provide access to healthy food for everyone, regardless of their income.
And let's not forget the potential for job creation. Urban farms need managers, growers, market creation. Urban farms need managers, growers, marketers, and distributors. UBI can help people acquire the skills and training they need to fill those roles, creating new economic opportunities in underserved communities.
So it's not just about handouts, it's about opportunity creation? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. UBI is not a replacement for a strong social safety net or for policies that address systemic inequalities, but it can be a powerful tool for empowering individuals and communities to build a better future for themselves.
And let's consider another angle, the political landscape. We're seeing a trend of voters who initially supported certain politicians on economic grounds now feeling disillusioned. How can we link this to existing economic inequalities? A deeper understanding of the specific economic concerns of those voters is crucial to understanding the potential efficacy of alternative solutions like UBI.
I see this disillusionment all the time. People get promised the world and then nothing. But UBI, isn't that just another promise? Another politician saying, I'll give you free money. How is that any different?
It's different because it's not tied to specific political agendas or campaign promises. It's a fundamental right, a basic safety net that's available to everyone, regardless of who's in power. It's about providing stability and security in a volatile world.
And it's about empowering people to hold their elected officials accountable. When people are economically secure, they're more likely to participate in the political process, to demand better policies, and to hold their leaders accountable.
Okay, so it's about disrupting the system? About giving power back to the people?
In a way, yes. It's about creating a more democratic and equitable society where everyone has the opportunity to thrive, regardless of their background or their circumstances.
And in the context of urban agriculture, it's about empowering communities to take control of their own food systems, to build more resilient and sustainable local economies, and to create a more just and equitable world.
So, instead of relying on these politicians to fix everything from the top down, UBI is about enabling people to fix things from the bottom up, to grow their own solutions.
Exactly. It's about fostering a sense of agency and empowerment, about creating a society where everyone has the opportunity to contribute and to thrive.
And that's why I'm so passionate about this topic, because I believe that UBI combined with urban agriculture has the potential to transform our cities, our communities, and our world.
All right. You've convinced me to keep an open mind. Still got a lot of questions, but I see the potential. The urban agricultural, UBI-powered potential.
And that's what it's all about, Otto. Keeping the conversation going, challenging our assumptions, and exploring new possibilities.
Now let's shift gears and talk about the potential impact of aggressive immigration enforcement practices on local economies. We've seen reports of arrests and detentions, and even potential discussions about suspending habeas corpus. How could that impact local economies, and how could UBI provide a safety net in that kind of situation?
Whoa, hold on a second. Suspending habeas corpus? That's pretty extreme. Are we really going there? And how does that relate to UBI?
Well, the fear and instability induced by aggressive immigration enforcement can have a devastating impact on local economies. Small businesses rely on immigrant workers and customers. If those workers are detained or deported, businesses suffer, and the entire community suffers.
Exactly. And UBI can provide a cushion in those situations. It can help families who have lost a breadwinner to stay afloat, to keep their homes, and to avoid falling into poverty. It can also help small businesses to weather the storm by providing them with a stable customer base.
So it's like an economic shock absorber for when the government does something stupid.
It can be, but it's also about creating a more just and equitable society where everyone has the right to live without fear, regardless of their immigration status.
And let's not forget about the potential for urban agriculture to play a role here. Community gardens and urban farms can provide a source of fresh, healthy food for immigrant communities, and they can also create opportunities for economic empowerment.
Okay, I see that. So it's about creating a more resilient local economy, one that's less vulnerable to the whims of the government?
Exactly. It's about building community power and creating a more just and equitable world for everyone.
And in cities like Nashville, Tennessee, where we've seen reports of disproportionate targeting of immigrant communities, UBI could be a lifeline. It could help stabilize those communities, mitigate the fear and instability caused by immigration raids, and provide a platform for long-term economic advancement.
Nashville? That's a music city, right? I didn't realize they were having these kinds of problems.
Unfortunately, these issues are widespread, and they highlight the urgent need for more nuanced and equitable economic safety nets, particularly in areas with large immigrant populations.
And let's be clear, UBI is not a replacement for comprehensive immigration reform, but it can be a valuable tool for mitigating the harm caused by current policies and for creating a more just and equitable society for everyone.
So it's about damage control, about trying to fix the mess that the government is making?
It's about more than that. It's about building a better future, one where everyone has the opportunity to thrive, regardless of their immigration status or their background.
And that's why I'm so passionate about this topic, because I believe that UBI combined with urban agriculture has the potential to create a more just, equitable, and sustainable world for everyone.
All right, I'm starting to see the light. Still got a lot of doubts, but I'm willing to keep listening.
That's all we can ask for, Otto. To keep the conversation going, to keep challenging our assumptions, and to keep exploring new possibilities.
Now, let's delve a bit deeper into the potential design of a UBI program, specifically tailored to address the economic vulnerability of immigrants in targeted cities. How would such a program be designed to be effective? And how would it navigate potential conflicts with existing social safety nets?
That sounds like a logistical nightmare. You're talking about different eligibility requirements, different benefit levels. Wouldn't that just create more confusion and resentment?
That's a legitimate concern, Otto. But it's important to remember that UBI is intended to be universal. It's not meant to replace existing social safety nets, but rather to supplement them. So the key is to design the program in a way that minimizes conflicts and maximizes benefits for everyone.
And we can learn from existing cash transfer programs around the world. Many of these programs have been successful in reducing poverty and improving health outcomes without creating significant disincentives to work. We can adapt those models to the specific context of immigrant communities in targeted cities.
But what about the cost? These programs can be incredibly expensive. Where's the money going to come from?
As we discussed earlier, there are various funding models to consider, including a value-added tax, a carbon tax, and streamlining existing welfare programs. The key is to find a funding model that's both sustainable and equitable.
And let's not forget the potential cost savings. By reducing poverty and improving health outcomes, UBI can actually save money in the long run. It's an investment in the future.
Okay, but what about the potential for fraud and abuse? How do you prevent people from gaming the system?
That's a valid concern, and it needs to be addressed. But studies have shown that fraud rates in cash transfer programs are actually quite low, and we can implement safeguards to minimize the risk of fraud, such as using biometric identification and monitoring payments for suspicious activity.
And technology can play a big role in ensuring the integrity of the program. Blockchain-based systems, for example, can provide a secure and transparent way to track payments and prevent fraud.
All right, I'm starting to see the potential benefits, but I'm still worried about the unintended consequences. What if UBI just leads to higher prices and more inflation?
That's a legitimate concern, and it needs to be addressed. But studies have shown that the impact of UBI on inflation is likely to be modest, and we can implement policies to mitigate the risk of inflation, such as increasing the supply of goods and services.
And let's not forget that UBI can also boost economic growth. By giving people more money to spend, it can stimulate demand and create new jobs.
Okay, so it's not just about giving people money, it's about stimulating the economy?
Exactly. UBI is an investment in the future. It's an investment in people, in communities, and in the economy.
And in the context of urban agriculture, it's an investment in a more sustainable and resilient food system. It's about creating a world where everyone has access to fresh, healthy food, regardless of their income or their background.
All right, you've convinced me to keep an open mind. Still got a lot of questions, but I'm starting to see the potential.
That's all we can ask for, Otto. To keep the conversation going, to keep challenging our assumptions, and to keep exploring new possibilities.
Okay, let's talk about the reported arrests of over 100 people in Tennessee, seemingly based on immigration violations during a joint operation with the State Highway Patrol. This raises significant concerns about potential racial profiling and disproportionate targeting of immigrant communities. How do we ensure that UBI doesn't inadvertently become a tool for further marginalizing these vulnerable populations?
That's a really good point. If UBI is administered by the same government agencies that are carrying out these immigration raids, wouldn't that create a chilling effect? Wouldn't people be afraid to apply for benefits for fear of being deported?
Absolutely. That's why it's crucial to ensure that UBI programs are administered by independent organizations that are trusted by the immigrant community. We need to build firewalls between immigration enforcement and social safety nets.
And we need to be transparent about the data that's being collected and how it's being used. We need to ensure that UBI programs are not being used as a pretext for gathering information that could be used for immigration enforcement purposes.
So it's about protecting people's privacy, about ensuring that UBI doesn't become a tool for surveillance.
Exactly. UBI should be a tool for empowerment, not for oppression. It should be a way to lift people out of poverty, not to further marginalize them.
And we need to be mindful of the potential for unintended consequences. For example, if UBI benefits are counted as income for the purposes of determining eligibility for other social safety net programs, that could actually leave some people worse off. We need to carefully coordinate UBI with existing programs to ensure that everyone benefits.
So it's about careful planning, about thinking through all the potential ramifications.
Absolutely. UBI is a complex policy proposal, and it needs to be implemented thoughtfully and carefully. We need to learn from our mistakes and adapt as we go.
And we need to be willing to listen to the concerns of the immigrant community. They are the experts on their own lives, and their voices need to be heard in the design and implementation of UBI programs.
All right. I'm starting to see the challenges, but I'm also starting to see the potential rewards.
And that's what it's all about, Otto. To keep the conversation going, to keep challenging our assumptions, and to keep exploring new possibilities.
And in the context of urban agriculture, it's about creating a food system that's accessible to everyone, regardless of their immigration status or their background. It's about building community power and creating a more just and equitable world for all.
Okay, I'm officially overwhelmed. But I'm also intrigued. This is a lot to unpack.
It is, but it's a conversation we need to keep having. The future of our cities and the future of our society depends on it.
All right, let's zoom out a little and consider the broader implications of relying on state and local law enforcement and immigration enforcement as seen in Tennessee. Is this the most effective and ethical approach? And how can UBI provide a buffer against the potential economic fallout of such strategies?
Well, it sure seems like a heavy-handed approach. I mean, using local cops to enforce federal immigration laws? That sounds like a recipe for disaster. Is the focus on immigration enforcement diverting resources and attention from addressing the root causes of economic disparity?
Exactly. That's the key question. Are we addressing the symptoms or the disease? And are we creating more problems than we're solving? When we rely on enforcement alone, we often fail to address the underlying issues that drive immigration, such as poverty, violence, and lack of opportunity.
And that's where UBI comes in. By providing a basic safety net, we can help to address the economic insecurity that drives some people to immigrate in the first place. We can also help to support immigrant communities who are already here by providing them with the resources they need to thrive.
So it's like a preventative measure about trying to address the root causes of immigration rather than just trying to stop it at the border?
Exactly. UBI is not a silver bullet, but it can be a valuable tool for creating a more just and equitable world, one where everyone has the opportunity to thrive, regardless of their immigration status.
And let's not forget the potential for urban agriculture to play a role here. By creating jobs and providing access to fresh, healthy food, urban farms can help to revitalize immigrant communities and create a more sustainable local economy.
Okay, I see that. So it's about creating a virtuous cycle, about addressing the root causes of immigration, supporting immigrant communities, and building a more sustainable local economy.
Exactly. UBI and urban agriculture can work together to create a more just and equitable world for everyone.
And let's be clear, we're not advocating for open borders or for ignoring immigration laws, but We are arguing that a more humane and effective approach to immigration is possible, one that addresses the root causes of immigration and supports immigrant communities.
Okay, so it's not about being soft on immigration. It's about being smart on immigration.
Exactly. It's about creating a system that's both just and effective, one that respects the dignity of all people and promotes the common good.
And that's why I'm so passionate about this topic, because I believe that UBI and urban agriculture have the potential to transform our cities, our communities, and our world.
All right. You've convinced me to keep an open mind. Still got a lot of questions, but I'm starting to see the potential.
That's all we can ask for, Otto. To keep the conversation going, to keep challenging our assumptions, and to keep exploring new possibilities.
Well, this has been a fascinating discussion. We've covered a lot of ground, from the basics of UBI to its potential impact on urban agriculture and immigrant communities. I think we've all learned something today.